Mango Airlines has found itself the subject of two opposing proposed business rescue processes, one led by the carriers' unions and the other by its board and parent company, SAA. The National Union of Metal Works of SA, known as NIMSA, the South African Cabin Crew Association, called SACA, and the Mango Pilots Association had filed an urgent application to have Mango replaced and placed in business rescue. They don't believe SAA, Mango, or the Public Enterprises Department have any serious intention of saving the airline. They said SAA, Mango, and the department want the low-cost carrier Lift, which is owned by Global Airways, to become the dominant low-cost carrier. And this, they say, would be at Mango's expense. Global Airways is part of the Takatsu Consortium, which is the department's preferred strategic equity partner to take a 51% interest in SAA. Mango is opposing the union's urgent business rescue application. Meanwhile, last week, SAA's acting CEO, Thomas Gokolo, confirmed Mango would go into a business rescue and that SAA and Mango were finalizing who would be appointed the business rescue practitioner. He said Mango was still part of SAA's domestic flying plans, while the Department of Public Enterprises said last week it supported Mango entering business rescue because this was a better option than liquidation. Well, I am Lekon Onobanjo. You're welcome. This is Business Edge. All right, so joining me on this conversation is Joachim Valmartin, who is the independent aviation economist, and we will be taking a look at the issue surrounding reviving Mango Airlines. So many issues have emanated from its inability to sustain its activity, that is in terms of lifting human and cargo, transiting from one point to another. Some people have said it's due to the coronavirus pandemic. Some people have said it's due to its inability to manage its operations properly. But then we get to talk to Joachim Valmartin, who is an independent aviation economist, to talk more on this issue and some other issues as regards the Mango Airlines. All right, is Joachim there?
Yes, good morning, and good morning to the viewers.
All right, good morning. Thank you for joining us. We are taking a look at the issue of Mango Airlines and what needs to be done to revive the airline. But then let's start by asking you, Joachim. Now, South African low-cost carrier Mango Airlines has been struggling to maintain its operations because of delays in receiving its portion of state funding from SAA. Now, is it excusable that Mango is not self-sufficient and still relies on state funds to operate?
Well, if one take a step back, then Mango was launched in 2006 with 4 aircraft, and initially it seemed to be fairly successful. Then its fleet was increased from 4 aircraft to 14 aircraft, and that was just too large, taking into account the market conditions. The market actually didn't grow a lot, maybe 2 or 3% per annum, and that resulted in high turnover but horrific losses. So it scaled up to a large scale for the demand for its operation. In addition, it was competing with SAA on some of its routes, especially the main route, Johannesburg to Cape Town. And so there was an overlap between the state-owned airlines. Now, if you look at America, most of the larger airlines started up its low-cost airlines, but once the concept has been proven successful, they adopted those same techniques into the main airline and closed down the low-cost airline so that there's no cannibalization of traffic and clarity of branding. And that has been the difficulty between SAA and Mango because it was competing on major elements of their networks. And there were different thoughts. Sometimes SAA wanted to transfer its domestic operations to Mango, but as a result of the business rescue process, it was decided to launch SAA in the domestic market in direct competition to SAA. Other difficulties was when SAA went into business rescue, Mango was not put in business rescue, which is strange because it was an integral part of SAA's overall domestic strategy. That meant that no adjustments took place in Mango, whilst at the time it was very clear that it had to reduce its scale of operations, reduce the 14 aircraft to a lower level because demand will be lower after COVID, and also its employment complement. That wasn't done, and unfortunately, with the decline in revenue, its cost just exceeded the revenue, and until the airline didn't have any cash anymore. And that's a position that Mango is in at the moment.
So, invariably, if I get you correctly, are you saying that Mango, as it were, when it was created, the foundation was kind of faulty, or there was a derail in the sort of vision that established the Mango Airlines, or what actually happened? At what point did they miss it? They had a focus for creating Mango Airlines. Is it that they derailed from that plan, or the foundation itself was faulty, so they could not follow through the processes to sustain the airline?
Well, I think Mango does have a place in the market. It has a unique type of distribution mechanism, and it has its own loyal following. But the scale up of it from 4 aircraft to 14 aircraft was just too ambitious, and the market demand couldn't rise enough to sustain itself.
All right, well, let me ask you now, are the delays in receiving of funds for Mango Airlines to sustain it, would you say that the delays are deliberate? Because, of course, you know that when a business venture is established, one of the main reasons is to make profit, is for revenue generation. And when you have the initiators not gaining as much or even gaining at all, then they would want to recline in carrying the burden of financing such a business. So would you say that they got weary, as it were, and that is why they are having difficulties in receiving funds to sustain the airline?
Yes, certainly. It's been very difficult. It only opened flights for a day or two in advance, and that's not the way to run an airline. But at the moment, the position is that the board of Mango decided to go into business rescue. It wasn't supported by the government, by Department of Public Enterprises, until the trade unions took action to put it in place into business rescue, and that was brought about a liquidation application by one of the leasing companies. So that hearing will only take place on Friday, and I suspect it'll be a week or two after that we'll know what will be happening.
All right, Joachim, you've talked about the situation Mango Airline is in. You've talked about the situation, as it were, and what can be done to get out of it. But before we begin to look into the basic steps needed for them to at least stay afloat even as they are in the rescue bid. Now, Mango will, according to reports, Mango will enter a local form of bankruptcy protection. That is the news that we have as of now. And the move would help the airline restructure its business and gain liquid capital support from its shareholders. Now, I want you to put yourself in the same position as the parent company. Would you follow the same path? Would you toe the same rescue line in order to save Mango Airlines, or there's something different that you would have done?
Well, there are many conflicts of interest in this story. From a business perspective, obviously SAA and Mango is competing on the major routes. Secondly, SAA's new business partner is also a low-cost carrier that will compete with Mango on the major routes. And then there's competition in funds. SAA needs funds and is short on funding its total restart program. At the same time, it needs to give some money to Mango. So it's really a study in conflict of interest.
Conflict of interest. That's actually the next point I want us to touch down on. Is there a rift between SAA and Mango Airlines? Now, the funding allocated by the state to SAA is about 10.5 billion rands, which is about $706 million, out of which Mango Airlines is awaiting its own share. So some people are speculating that there is a rift between SAA and Mango, and that's actually causing the delay in shared allocation. What do you make of that? Quickly.
Well, there's a shortage in the total funding. The minister wanted a start-up of 14 billion instead of the 10.5. So that's another 3.5 billion that needs to be sourced. Secondly, he's envisaged 5.3 to come from the equity partner. And the current people have only indicated a willingness to provide 3 billion. So there's a 2.3 billion short. And then the 2.7 that is now earmarked from SAA to the subsidiaries is also 2.7 short. So if you add that up, you get to a shortage of 8.5 billion to execute the minister's business plan. So either more money has to be provided to SAA, or alternatively, the starter plan would have to be reduced in scale and scope significantly.
All right, Joachim, we get to pause for a while. It's all about bringing about a rescue plan, or should I just call it Operation Rescue Mango Airlines. But then we'll go for a break right now. When we return, we get to look at what the National Union of Metal Workers of SA are saying. We look at the South African Cabin Crew Association and, of course, the Mango Pilots Association. What are they saying and what are they doing? What is their role in all of this? Because what is paramount is to ensure that Mango Airlines remains operational, though it has gone into some sort of comatose as we have it as of now. But then let's go for this break, and when we return, we get to look at this association and what can be done to ensure that they come back to life, if that is possible. Do stay with us. It's Business Edge. And still with me on the program is Joachim Vamutin, an independent aviation economist. We have been discussing the issue of reviving Mango Airlines. So many situations as regards this airline. And let me go back to you, Joachim, and have your take on this. Now, some organized union comprising of the National Union of Metal Workers of SA, that's NUMSA, the South African Cabin Crew Association, and the Mango Pilots Association, want to take charge of the business rescue. They are saying, we want to be in charge of the rescue bid. Now, is this normal, or should we call this a serious cry for help?
Well, all the parties are in court at the moment, and they have to present their cases to the judge. the Mango management, together with the Department of Public Enterprises, want their own business rescue practitioner, whilst the three trade unions have their own proposal. So it really depends on what the judge decides on the matter. And there's a pending liquidation application as well by one of the lessors. So we have to wait and see what the judge make of it and what decision is forthcoming from that.
Decisions and what can be forthcoming. Now, Thomas Gokolo, who is the acting head of SSA, said that the airline was anticipating securing the renewal of the air operators certificates which expired on June 30, 2021. Now, will this help the airline to stabilize and catalyze its operations in any way?
Well, SA has just been recertified, but it has very little aircraft that it can actually use at the moment. And the funding issue hasn't been resolved yet. So its partnership with the people has to be finalized. And then only we'll know what is the ultimate strategic plan with its restarting. On Mango, I think if you restart on a very small level, maybe 2 or 3 aircraft and expand a little bit to regional routes, I think there's a chance for it to survive. But it has to be significantly smaller than it is today.
Well, talking about the chance for this airline to survive, let me let you know that Mango Airline is not the only airline that is affected, that is going down, let me put it that way. Now, this is the 4th South African airline that is faced with such a situation. And one of those basic cause is the COVID-19, the coronavirus pandemic that is ravaging so many countries globally. Now, what long-term measures now do you think should be put in place to help Mango Airlines and other airlines that are in the same situation stay afloat? What kind of rescue bid would you give to help them come back on board and sustain its operations, probably for the next 10 years?
Well, the crucial management ability that has to be developed is to balance the capacity and frequency of flights to a much lower demand level. So you really have to be very conservative in setting up the size and scope of operations, because the demand levels is really, really very low. I would say that for the year, it'd probably be about 30 to 35% of what it was in 2019.
Okay, so finally, Joachim, I would like to take your reaction now. There's no way we can talk about this and not talk about the employees of these airlines. And one question people are asking is, are their jobs safe? There's so much power tussle between the unions. There's SA on the corner. Now, these people are wondering, are their jobs safe? Will they be able to retain their jobs after the whole rescue plan has been concluded?
Yeah. Well, I think, these matters should have been attended to a long time ago. The facts are that if you operate a smaller operation, you have to reduce staff. You can't have 750 people attending only 2 or 3 aircraft. So it would be necessary to actually retrench people according to a restructuring plan. And as things develop and markets increase a little bit, then you can reappoint people. But for now, there would have to be some job losses, unfortunately, due to reduction of the scale of operations.
All right, thank you so much, Joachim Valmertin, for joining us on discussion. Really appreciate your time. Thank you so much. Okay, so it's all about coming up with a rescue plan and coming up with foreseeable and, of course, visible 1, 2, 3 steps that can help Mango Airlines come back on board even as the rescue bid is being put into motion. And not to forget the employees now who get to be the one to suffer the brunt of whatever the entirety of the decision would be. So it is now time for Mango Airlines and, of course, every other member of the managerial board to come together and begin to forge a common front so as to save the airline and every other airline that is faced with this challenge as we speak. But then let's quickly go for this break. When we return, it will be time for NC4 to watch. Do stay with us. It's now time for NC4 to watch, and we start by telling you that Kenyan low-cost carrier Jambojet has announced plans to commence flights between Nairobi and the Democratic Republic of Congo city of Goma from next month. The airline says it will first operate 2 weekly flights on the route and gradually increase to 4 flights. Mumias Sugar Company receiver manager Ponangipali Venkanta Rao has re-advertised a lease deal for the 15 billion Kenyan shillings assets of the debt-ridden sugar firm. Parties interested in placing their bids have until August 31, 2021 to submit the applications after a similar exercise failed in June. South Africa has experienced 650 hours of load shedding in the first half of 2021, which is about 15% of the time, shedding an estimated 963 gigawatts of estimated energy, according to a new report from the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research. Shockingly, this is 76% of the total load shedding experienced in the whole of last year, suggesting that unless Eskom is able to drastically reduce the unplanned rolling blackouts in the second half of 2021, this year we will have a marked deterioration in energy availability as compared to the previous year. And finally, Nigeria's Federal Executive Council has approved contracts for the rehabilitation of Warri and Kaduna refineries. The projects will cost a combined total sum of $1.5 billion to $897.67 million for Warri Refinery and $586.9 million for Kaduna Refinery. The completion of the rehabilitation of the Warri and Kaduna refineries is going to be in 3 phases. First phase is within 21 months. In 23 months, phase 2 will be completed, and in 33 months, the full rehabilitation will be completed. And that's it on Business Edge. Many thanks for watching. You can visit our social media platforms. We are at New Central TV and be part of the conversation. Do not forget to visit our website www.newcentral.africa. You can also download our app store. You can go on App Store and Play Store and download our app to be part of the conversation, and we will definitely love to hear from you. Thank you for watching. My name is Lekona Banjo. See you next time. Have a pleasant day.